Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. I'm back at the legendary Sardi's, and my guest has been dazzling audiences since her Tony Award-winning turn as Miss Adelaide in Guys and Dolls. She has starred in such shows as Jerome Robbins' Broadway, A Catered Affair, Bells Are Ringing, and The Little Mermaid. She is known to legions of fans for her work on film and TV, and now she is back on Broadway, where she is stopping the show 8 times a week in the hilarious 70s musical Disaster. Please welcome Faith Prince.
S-A-T-U-R-D-A-Y, nice. S-A-T-U-R-D-A-Y, nice.
Dancing to the music in our heart and soul on Saturday night.
Hey!
Saturday night.
It's like thunder, lightning. The way you love me is frightening. You better knock, knock, knock on wood, baby.
Hi there, how are you?
Honey, we're at Sardi's.
Look what I found. Look at this.
Okay, do we love the short hair?
Yes,
Thinking. Hair's the same color, sort of,
I love it.
but brought into 2016, so you have a little darker roots and the red on the outside there.
Love it. That's a really good one.
It's cute, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it does look like me.
What time period? Bells Are Ringing? When was that?
You know what? I think it was.
Yeah. That was your Bells Are Ringing hairdo.
Yeah. And I think I have another one down there from Guys and Dolls.
Yeah. Well, you have 2.
I think I do.
Oh, good.
I remember
Yeah.
doing it like having a yellow
Yeah.
background. Do other people? I mean, I
No,
forgot
you're
that I
very
had
lucky.
2. Yeah.
I love this. So here we are. First of all, welcome back to Broadway.
Thank you.
How much fun are you having?
Can't believe I'm getting paid. Honestly, don't tell that to producers, because I did say that one night. The guy goes, "You know, I am producing you." It's like, that's not a good thing to say. But you know what? I honestly, I walk off stage and I go, just got paid for that.
Fabulous.
It is insane how much fun I'm having. And my girlfriend, you know, my best girlfriend I talk to, Chicago, we probably talk maybe 5 times a week. She goes, you are really getting fed from this in so many ways. And I kind of knew I would, because Seth and I go way back. We did group therapy together for 10 years.
Love that.
And I always say, share your feelings and you get a Broadway show. But we've done other things since then,
Yeah.
you know, and I've been on a lot, but I trust him.
Yeah.
And honestly, everybody up there trusts him.
Yeah.
He's gotten that cast because of him, and Jack Plotnick, who, you know, wrote it with him. But really, it's about trust and respect. And
Okay.
everybody, I mean, to have 11 comics on stage and a 6-person ensemble that are, I mean, they are doing amazing things, but have all those people and not have any rows,
Yeah.
wow, that's something. And it's really restored my faith, no pun intended, in the whole process.
Sure.
And, you know, just because it doesn't always work out like that, you know, but it's my favorite thing. I mean, you know, working with Jen Simard, you know, it's like Lucille Ball and Ruth Buzzy in the same play.
Who were your icons growing up? Who did you admire?
Oh, let's see. Well, definitely Lucille Ball, Carol Burnett. I mean, I started with that. I looked at that and I was like, the physical humor and everything. I just was sort of like a sponge absorbing. But my dad was a nuclear engineer, and he was also a vaudevillian. So I think I was just turned on to humor. And he would always like invite friends over and sort of hold court. And I remember there being a kid going, I think I could do that. I think I could do that, you know. So you kind of absorb things. And my mom was wacky and had a funny laugh and a nice voice. So the merging of those two people created me, and then I just would watch cartoons. And I always tell people, watch cartoons. That's where you get the best ideas of comedy, the old ones.
So what's it like living in the world of the 70s in Disaster?
Well, it was my high school, it was my college. So for me, hearing those songs every night, interpreting them, I mean, I only really sing one of them, but honestly, I should be in my dressing room resting my poor little almost 60-year-old legs. But do I do that? No. I'm in the wings watching every bit, every number, watching Adam Pascal just like wail on Can't Live. I'm watching Carrie Butler, I Am Woman. I'm in the wings, you know, watching Jen Simard, you know, doing, you know, Torn Between Two Lovers and I Never Say Goodbye. I can't get my eyes off of them. I am obsessed, as Seth says.
Well, how does it feel to stop the show every night with your big tap number in the second act?
Oh, It is.
You do everything in the show.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
I don't know which is my favorite. The Tourette's cussing, the pelvic spasms, the tapping, the being Kevin Chamberlain's wife. I don't know which is my favorite. I think, and it's funny because I'm not throwing my agent under the bus, but he was like, "Really? You don't even have a song by yourself?" I said, "You know what? Sometimes that's not what it takes."
Sure.
I describe it like a little snowball, and it starts to gather and gather and gather, and it goes up the slope, and suddenly it's, pew, it's over the cliff, you know? And I kind of dig those kind of roles. So it adds up for me, and then I die.
Is Shirley fun to play?
Amazing. She's many things. In fact, it's funny, I had an interview the other day, and he goes, "She's a little like grown-up Adelaide." And I said, a little like Shelley Winters, a little like The Exorcist, a little, because things are being done to her. And he goes, "How do you think people, like, when they know you as Miss Adelaide and they see you, like, you know, have all those cuss words, they're not that bad, and I have a scarf in my mouth. Don't get excited." Because kids can come into the show, because I never say anything that they really know what I'm saying, but you will. He said, "How, you know, I just think of people like seeing you like that." And I said, "Honey, if you don't think I had an edge, I have an edge, believe me." I said, "You never saw me on Huff on Showtime. I have an edge."
Sure.
And it's fun to let it out every once in a while. So I sleep really well at night, is what I can tell you.
Oh, you get a workout in that show.
I do, and I think I want to sell my scarves in the lobby for every person to just jam them in their mouth and cuss every once in a while. It's a release.
Well, let me ask you, why do you think audiences have such a great time at this show?
A lot of things. I think the music is comforting, was what I was going to say before, because for me in high school and college, it's like when it just washes over you. Good lyrics, good tunes. It was a more innocent time. The whole show is not mean-spirited in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't close anybody out. It's not inside theater humor. It's global humor. And it's based on things that are universal, that everybody will recognize in themselves, in their tribes. It's universal. Yeah. And it is the silliest, funniest, dumbest jokes in a way that you just go, oh no, it's not going. And I've never heard belly laughs like that. And I think it is so cleansing for people. I literally had a woman the other night come up to me and she said, "I have to tell you something. My husband committed suicide 4 months ago. And I am like a major theater goer, opera, anything. I haven't been able to sit through one thing until tonight." She said, "I laughed so hard that I cried everything out." And she said, "I cannot tell you how cleansing that was for me."
Isn't that great?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think also where we are in the world, it's a circus out there in so many ways. I mean, Brussels just happened.
Sure.
Paris. You know, we live in New York City. It's like, okay, it could all end tomorrow. It's like to come into the theater and be taken away in a more innocent time and a parody of disaster and make you laugh at yourself and others and situations and hear that music. I'm telling you, we're going to have a lot of repeaters.
Oh, yeah. What was that defining moment for you when you said, "I need to be a performer. I want to try to make a living at this"?
Well, I tell this, you know, I teach a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of like a life coach for artists. And one of the things that I think I've also taught my son is listening to yourself. And I think when you're young and coming up and you're going, gee, what is this world? How do I fit into this world? Who am I? I want to be seen. And I think you start listening to things. And when you affect people and something happens, you go, wow, I think I might be really good at that. Yeah. And it starts to really tear you away from other choices because you think, this might be really the best thing that I have to give to the world. And I was actually going to be a musical therapist. That's where I was sort of going. I worked with, I had a good friend who had a challenge, a sister with challenges, and she was actually mentally retarded. And her mother ran this camp, Meadowlark Camp, during the summers. And all of us kids were in the same group, and we did musicals at the high school and stuff. And she would get us to be counselors for these kids in the summer. And we would take them on different trips, we would give them classes, and I was head of the music program. And I really loved how it affected the kids, and I could see their personalities, and then I would do some variety shows, and one would play the guitar, and one would want to sing and everything. So that's kind of where I was going. But then I got into high school, and I realized I was pretty funny. I started getting cast in roles, and I thought, and my chorus teacher went to my parents and said, I don't normally say this, but I think Faith might really have a gift, and we need to find her a good place to really get trained. And I hadn't really, and I was sort of on the fence about it because I knew there was a lot of trepidation. And then I went to CCM, College Conservatory of Music, which is still a great school. But they had very few musical theater schools then. So, and I was a turtle. I was really a turtle. I'd only done basically 2-3 musicals. These kids that I was sort of thrown into, that I got accepted to, there were maybe 20 in our class. I think we maybe graduated with 12, but I was the turtle, slow and steady, slow and steady. And that's why I tell a lot of people, what you are at 17 and what you are at 27 can be a huge leap. You don't have to have that thing right then. You're gathering knowledge, and I was sort of a sponge. And I was probably the greenest, and I would go to bed at night going, please, I just don't want to leave. I don't want to go back home. I don't want to fail at this. I'm going to keep going no matter what. Whatever happens, I'll just push it to the rear. I'm going to learn. So when I graduated my senior year, I got most talented in my class. And it really was a slow and steady climb. And that's why I always say to people, work hard, be a good student, absorb, be careful about that, having to be falsely confident, because that's a real push away. It's a place, musical theater, cabaret, performers, it's a place to display your inner vulnerability. And some people think it's just the opposite. So it's about taking off the mask, not putting it on.
So you got to New York. Did you work at McHale's?
I did. That was one of my day jobs.
So tell people who don't know what McHale's is.
Well, McHale's is not the McHale's that's there now. Peggy McHale and Jimmy McHale. It was a bar on 46th and 8th, right? And she hired a lot of, not made it yet actresses. And so I really wanted a day job. And a friend of mine, in fact, she just was up here. She now lives in New Orleans, Lainey Miller. She said, Faith, you should come down here and get a job. And I'm telling you, it was rough. It was rougher than being an actress, because you walk in there and those girls were not giving you the time of day. It's like, really, what's your shift? Are you taking mine? I'm like, hi, nice to meet you, And I was still Southern at that time. Yes, ma'am, oh, I'll get it. It was like, oh my God, that was brutal. But I'm the turtle. I'm slow and steady. And all the guys, all the stagehands would come in. Everybody from the theater would come in, at between shows and everything. Joey, give me my cheeseburger. Yeah, Joey, I got you. And I was working the back room, and I'll never forget, Peggy McHale was at the cash register, and then you could smoke and all the things. And she had this cigarette, and it would dangle like this much of the ash, like almost off her cigarette. And she'd go, Faith. I go, yes, ma'am. She goes, you're gonna make it, kid. I said, really? Why do you say that, Peggy? It's just something you sense? You sense it in me? She goes, yeah, because you're a lousy waitress.
I love that.
I go, I am not. I just worked that back room.
All right, so Scrambled Feet, was that your first big show in New York?
Yes, down at the Village. Well, it was at the Village Gate where I saw it. But it's a famous story, and I put it in Broadway Stories, and I won't go on about it. But my mom, my mom is not Mama Rose, and she had just come to the city to see where I was living and everything, and I was so excited because Jimmy Walton, who went to school with me at CCM, Tom Viola, Broadway Cares, Bill Nolte, Mark Waldrop, all that tribe had gone a little before me. So he was the understudy at Scrambled Feet, and it was great little review at the Village Gate. Remember the pole?
I loved that show.
Oh my God, the pole in the middle, and they'd like you'd have to do it on the thing. And so I was sitting there, I couldn't wait. Jimmy went on that night. And it was 3 men, piano, 1 woman, and a duck. And that was the show. And it was sort of the prequel to Forbidden Broadway. And it was sort of about the shows and everything, and it was blackout sketches and everything, and then they had this great number with the duck. So I'm sitting there, and my mother really is not Mama Rose, but at intermission she goes, I go, what? She goes, I go, what? She goes, you'd really be good in this show. And I go, me? Because, I mean, the woman
Yeah.
who was up there was like 10 years older than me. I go, there. She goes, just watch the second half. You'll really be good in that show. And I'm telling you, I was obsessed the second act. And I'm going, I'd really be funny. What choices would I make in that? Oh, that would be great. You know, and she was right.
Yeah.
So afterwards, we were waiting for Jimmy, and all the cast came out, and two of them were in the cast were the writers of the show.
Yeah.
And they were talking to these college kids, and I don't know what possessed me, but I raised my hand, and they said, yes, do you have a question? And I said, yes, do you need another girl? And they said, do you play the piano? And I said, absolutely, I did. They said, do you sing? And I said, of course. They said, well, we are actually looking for somebody to replace our original Evelyn Barron, who's
Yeah.
in Boston at the Charles Playhouse. And I said, great. And they got me together with their stage manager. I came in, and I got the job.
You were one of my favorite Audreys down at the Orpheum. Oh, yes. So you have quite a bittersweet story with that musical.
I do.
Tell me something briefly about that whole experience with Little Shop.
Well, I was cast first before Ellen Green.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience because new musicals at that time were far and few, just like now.
Yeah.
And when I got the sides, I went, this is me.
Yeah.
This is me. I know I have this girl in me. I know I do. Well, it turns out Howard Ashman, Alan Menken thought so too. The only problem was I had this big contract with IBM. It was an industrial, which they still have them to the day. Not as much, the Milliken.
They paid good money then.
It was the best. Honestly, it was the best pay. I would love to get a job like that now. But this was at the WPA.
Yeah.
And it was off Broadway. And I had signed this contract, and it said I could only get out for a Broadway show or a pilot with a major network, which there were only 3 at that time. What? So I decided when I got it, I went in and begged the guy at IBM, and I said, you have to let me do this. I said, this is going to be the biggest hit. It's about a man-eating plant who sings, feed me. And I know you can get another girl to do your IBM industrial. And of course, no. So later that year, the beautiful Ellen Green was amazing. Got the drama desk and a Hirschfeld. Remember Hirschfeld?
Yes.
Nina's, in the Times. And everybody, I remember I was doing something up at good speed, and they go, don't tell her about the Hirschfeld in the Times. And I'm going, you know what? It's okay. Everybody has their time, and I believe that. And honestly, I think if I had done it first, I might not have gotten Adelaide.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if people go, oh, it's too on the
Similar,
nose.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess I was named Faith for a reason, and not to hope to believe that I do believe.
I love that.
So.
But you were terrific in that role, just so you know.
Thank you.
So going into your Broadway debut, which is Jerome Robbins' Broadway, did you rehearse for like 6 months?
Yes.
That show? I remember running into everybody saying, well, we're going to open sometime at the end of the year.
And can I tell you?
Yeah.
Rehearsing for 6 months. Can you imagine rehearsing for 6 months with no audience telling you if you're funny, if it's going to work, if you need to pick up the pace or anything, except for Jerome Robbins sitting in the back going like this.
Pick it up.
And it was like, excuse me, that's taking me out of it. So we had a confrontation once. And yeah. And it was about that very thing. And he's funny. When you push back, he sort of does better. But you have to risk it.
Falsetto Land. You were Trina, but you didn't go in for that role.
I didn't. I went in. You've really done your research.
Well, I have to. You're,
It's
you're a fake
impressive.
prince.
It's
Thank you
really-
very much.
I went in for one of the lesbians from next door. I thought I was suited for that. And he calls me on the phone in only the way James Lapine. Oh, Faith, you need to do Trina. And I'm going, what? He goes, that's what I see you as. Just take the job. And I said, well, should we read or do something? He goes, no, just take it. And that's the same way when he directs comedy. He goes, don't do that. He's hysterical. And thank God he had me in that role. It was life-changing for me. It really was. And
That was
talking
Bill
about
Finn.
yeah, and talking about ensembles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I mean, Bogardus, Chip Zien, Michael Rupert, they'd all been in all of those things. So I just took the lead from them.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I'll never forget one of the things they do. If you listen to the CD, they backbeat so far, it's almost into the next measure. It's a style that they created of Bill Finn and Michael Starobin, doing the orchestrations and stuff. And I go, oh, okay. And I would just go along, I was like, okay, we're going to backbeat into the next, it's not backbeat, it's I don't know. Seth says I say it wrong, but you know what I'm
Back
saying.
phrasing?
Back phrasing. Thank you. I always say it wrong. Just like I say slung instead of flung. I don't know. I'm Mrs. Malaprop, really, if the truth be known. And I drive my pianist crazy when I do an act because he goes, you know, actually the grammar, it's like, I don't know, it's funny. Don't worry about it.
They'll laugh.
They'll laugh. So, anyways, and you see how I go along to come back? I'm back. James, that whole, again, that ensemble was one of my, honestly, being part of an ensemble is one of my favorite things. Why? Because when everybody in it is respectful and working together and doing the whole of the good of the whole, that's when I really feel part of a tribe.
Nick and Nora. I didn't even make you cry, but I'm like, now we're going to Nick and Nora.
Okay.
Was one of my all-time favorite flop posters that's hanging in Joe Allen.
Man, da 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 da. Oh, it's a great song. Wacky role. And I think, honestly, I don't think I could have lasted if it had run because I had no knee pads and I was in these gorgeous negligees and everybody would push me to the floor. I felt like the nun, but less graceful. And I would just get killed every sorts of ways. And by the end, I was like rolling down towards the pit. And I said, oh my God, if you'd just let me fall into the pit, you'd have a hit. And he didn't, and it wasn't.
Exactly.
So
you got your personal reviews. I mean, New York Times.
That's why I got Adelaide.
Really?
Jerry Zaks came to see me in that, and Frank Rich gave me the nod.
You got a whole paragraph. They were like, "This show stinks, except for this new star that's born."
It was unbelievable.
All right, we're gonna get into that now. You took Broadway by storm as Miss Adelaide. I don't know how you lived in that world at the time. Cover of the New York Times, everything, winning the Tony Award, every conceivable award that you could win for that role.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
You don't really want to know.
I'm sure it was a little bit of this, a little bit of that, I'm sure.
I loved the work, but a lot of that whirlwind, and I think anybody would probably tell you, a lot of people are into the fame stuff. I'm not really.
Yeah.
Anything that keeps me from the work, I get pissed off about. And I like having, being paced properly. That was all, it was a lot on me and Nathan. And, doing interviews like with you today, I like to be here, be focused, give my all. But if you do 4 of these a day, and then you go on stage, and then you've got a 6-show weekend, or, it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah. Where do you keep your Tony?
I have a beautiful dining room in my home, and a great bookcase, and it's like on the 3rd shelf. And I spin it every once in a while.
They're cool when they spin, right?
They are. If I've had a bad day, I just
spin your Tony.
You can feed her all day with the vitamin A and the bromo fizz, but the medicine never gets anywhere near where the trouble is. If she's getting a kind of a name for herself and the name ain't his, a person can develop a cough. And furthermore, just from stalling the wedding trip, a person can develop la postnasal drip with the wheezes and the sneezes and a sinus that's really a pip. From a lack of community property and a feeling she's getting too old, a person can develop a
You were one of the warmest Annas.
Thank you.
Because we were talking about Annas can be very stern and whatever else. You had such a warmth to her that you brought to her.
Thank you.
Favorite memories of that?
Mary Rogers thought I could do that show. And I'll never forget Arthur Lawrence wanted to come and see me, and he goes, I'm second acting it. He said, I can't believe she's doing that role. And Mary goes, well, believe it. She just got a great review in the Times. And I said, can't he pay for the whole show? What's wrong with him? And so he second acted, and I prepared all the girls because I had 4 dressers doing those hoops and stuff. And I said, he can be nasty, so just know I can take it. And he came back and he circled me and he goes, well, I don't believe it. You were great. And I said, well, Arthur, you have to write those kind of things for me to do them.
Good for you.
You little shit.
You were a whole different type of Miss Hannigan, too. I
Really?
love watching
Yeah.
your pictures. You were so striking with the different wig and
Oh,
everything
so
you
fun.
had.
So fun. It's so up my alley. Well, I always like characters with a push-pull. Ursula was like that, too. Because you have to, if you're going to be evil, you got to pull people in before you snatch their head off, you know. And Hannigan, what I loved about Hannigan is she, poor thing, I just felt for her. She really had a hard life. And they hear this like orphan getting everything she needs, and she's getting nothing. But then a man would come in the room and she'd go, oh, and her voice would like, you know, jump an octave.
Yeah.
So that was her push-pull. Listen, you little snit. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. You know, and it was just like, you can always drop an octave or go up an octave. That's funny.
Ursula in The Little Mermaid. Was she daunting for you? I mean, there was so much with that. It's the cape, it's the tentacles, the wig, the makeup.
The costume was daunting. Let's talk about the pod for a minute. Shall we talk about the pod? Yeah, that pod, there were two contraptions, the tentacles and then the cape, you know. And I lowered that about a third, and I'll tell you why. I love when you have to speak and sing in the same, for me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go, darling, it's your Auntie Ursula. And they go, you poor unfortunate soul. It just didn't make sense to me. You know, it's like, it should slide right in there and seamless, right?
Yeah.
So we lowered it, and then I got that cape up there, and I go, we're going to have to lower it again. But one night, I told you this story, I had a sub-dresser.
That's right.
And there's a crank. They put the tentacles on and then the cape, and she forgot to turn the crank for the cape. And I went, you poor unfortunate clunk. And it fell off the back. And here were the eels. And here was the conductor. And here was Ariel. And I was like, oh my, well, okay, we won't be using the cape for the last note. So the eels just flung the whole contraption. I learned that from Seth Rotetsky.
Love it.
Flung that off stage. But I still had my fingernails and my wonderful gloves. So I just went down to my ankles and went, just like hit the big note on the end.
You took on the iconic Judy Holliday role of Ella in Bells Are Ringing.
She's my favorite. Oh, I love that piece too. It was short-lived.
Yeah.
You know, I always say to people, great shows can be great, but in the wrong season.
Yeah.
And I think that was the case of that show.
Interesting.
Yeah. I love Tina Landau. She's one of my favorite directors I've ever worked with. I can't say enough about Kudish.
Sure.
But I think it was the wrong season for that kind of play.
A Catered Affair, your performance in that was one of the greatest musical theater performances I've ever seen on Broadway, and I've been going to Broadway since I was 10 years old.
Thank you.
I loved that show. I loved John Doyle. I loved
Me
everything
too.
about that show.
He took me places
Yeah.
I've never been. Honestly, after that show, I think, and I told him, I said, if
Yeah.
you wanted me to do Tennessee Williams, if you wanted me to do, you know, Pinter, if you wanted me to do Shakespeare, if you wanted me to do anything, I would walk any road with you.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think it was Lauren Bacall and Marion Seldes. I think those two came back and said, it's the closest thing to Lorette Taylor I've ever seen on Broadway.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't even know who they were talking about at the time, and I've since done the research. It was such the hugest compliment for me, because John Doyle made it a non-musical musical. And by that, I'm saying just the depth of the emotion that this woman felt. But I'll tell you, it's like Death of a Salesman. I started getting up in the morning, and I was like walking out of a 6-foot hole. And I said to my husband, I think I might be ill. He goes, no, it's that woman you're playing every night.
Yeah.
It's dark. And what you have to do, and a doctor said this one time, your body doesn't know you're acting.
Everything's golden, nothing goes wrong inside the song, in this candlelight, on this perfect night. And then there they are, the impossibly beautiful pair. Just to look at them makes you ache, to care like they care, to feel what they feel and believe
If you could sum up the best part of the experience of being back on Broadway in Disaster, what's it for you?
Well, as always, I love the audiences. And I have to tell you, I forget how much history I have here. The other night I was, collecting for Broadway Cares, and the things people say to me are just so loving. And I forget that. And being part of a tribe with a history, it's very moving and joyful.
My final question is, what is the best bit of advice that you've been given, both personally and professionally, that you live by?
Enjoy the moment you're in. Don't look for, it could always be bigger, better, more. Yeah, you could. I always feel like I could do more work, more this. But don't forget to really pause and enjoy where you're at, because it's fleeting.
Yeah. I thank you for one of the best afternoons.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you.
Just not so pretty.